Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So welcome today to Satsang. So we are a smaller group today. I think that may be true throughout the week. There are several large satsangs going on this week. So this, for those of you who have chosen to come here, this makes a more intimate setting, a little bit smaller group, maybe something you can find useful for yourself with fewer people here. Maybe something you've been reluctant to talk about or speak about in a larger group will rise up for you now and you can try to resolve whatever doubt you have in some way in a little bit more intimate group. But before we do that, I was speaking this morning with Robert, and he brought up a very interesting point, and it's something that I've heard not only in talking with people who are coming to satsang, but actually another person that I know who is also giving satsang during the season here mentioned a similar kind of noticing that Robert was noticing or mentioning this morning. And this is that right now many people here in Tiru, but also all over the world, are experiencing a deep sadness and even some fear around what's happening on the planet, around what's happening in many of our governments as things move further and further toward the right. And there's been this repeated theme throughout the time that we've all been here this year. People talking about this great sadness which is showing up for them as a consequence of what's happening in the ecology of the planet in Australia and all around the globe. Storms and extinction of species and all sorts of difficult things that are rising right now, and that this creates a great deal of difficulty for people who are particularly sensitive to it. And of course the question naturally arises, what could I or what should I be doing as I become more and more aware? Because I not only become aware of myself as the self, as being consciousness and bliss, but I also become aware of the world in a way that I hadn't been aware of it before. I think it can be helpful to remember the stories of many of the great masters that we've known and the ones that have been here Sri Ramana used to look at the newspaper every day. He used to sit on his tucket and very, very slowly, page by page, he would go through the India Times or whatever someone brought him that day. Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar used to pick up pieces of newspaper off of the street, and he would spread them out in front of him, and he would look at everything that was there. Then he would take that page and stuff it in a sack, and then another page would go down and he'd look, and then he'd take that page and stuff it in a sack. And actually, if you go downtown to the place where Yogi Ramsarat Kumar used to live, or used to frequent, I don't know that he ever lived there, but you can actually see some of these bags of wadded up newspaper articles that he had looked over. But these great beings were clear that they were not just imbibing in the news of the day in order to be a thrill seeker or in order to contribute in some way mental energy to the difficulties. Because you know, the samsara of this world has always been here. We take it particularly personally what's happening now, but we forget that the great sages have always referred to this life as samsara, a great suffering, a great pain, while at the same time indicating that this samsara, this difficulty that we experience in life, whether it is personal, social, planetary, contains within it the seeds for our awakening. And so these great masters would be very, very clear that what they were doing by looking at what was going on in all the different parts of the world. And remember, these masters, Sri Aurobindo, Anandamoyi Ma, they were all alive at a time when first there was World War I. There was a great deal of difficulty, a great deal of pain and suffering all over the world. Many of them were alive during World War II. In India, all of these great saints were here during the time of India's revolution and its independence, during a time when there was great suffering for many, many people in India, both from the government that was here, the colonial government, and also from the freeing of India of the colonial government. India was not particularly ready, set, if you will, to take care of its own. It had been under colonial rule for such a long time. And so people suffered. And all of this was taking place on the backdrop of World War II. These things were happening simultaneously. And many of these sages had been through the Great World War I as well. And they were very clear that our task as beings who are already awake enough to be here and to be in this great blessing of satsang is not that we contribute our sadness, our pain, and our suffering to the sadness, pain, and suffering of the world, but rather that realize that what comes to us, that which commands our attention, is there for healing, for love. The power of your thought, the power of your love is very strong and very great. But for some of you, it will require that you remember that. It can become so easy, as you may have noticed, to look on the internet now. We can get news from all around the world in just a few minutes. And we can get sucked into that feel the rising pain and the rising suffering. This all happens quite naturally. But often what doesn't happen naturally is for us to remember that we can bring with our attention great compassion and great love to whatever difficulties we encounter, whether it's personally, day to day, or whether it's for the planet at large. For some of you, you will need to turn off the internet for now. If you have infinite compassion, then whatever comes receives that compassion, that love. But if what happens for you at this moment is that you get drawn deeply into it with a great sense of sadness, a great sense of despair, defeat, these are the kinds of emotions that come over you, then it's best to limit how much time you spend looking at your phone and your computer. The time that you typically spend doing these kinds of things, in this case, would be better spent asking the question, what is aware of this? So that when you feel this sadness, when you feel this difficulty, when you feel this compassion for the world, this becomes your anchor in the self. Because it's not you that is asking this question. Whenever it comes to mind to ask this question, what is aware of this? Who is feeling this sadness? Who wishes to give compassion to the world? Whenever you are asking these kinds of questions, but particularly in this case, what is aware of this? What you are doing is you are taking the attention that I've spoken about over the last few weeks, which is the food for thought. You are taking that attention and feeding the self by asking this question, what is aware of this? And noticing that before all of this thinking, even as you sit and look at your tablet screen, even as a difficult emotion is coming, you can look prior to that and notice what is here now, what is aware. And ask the question, am I aware of awareness itself? Am I aware that I am aware? In doing this, by this I mean in some way withdrawing your attention from the sadness and the grief and the difficulty, not by pushing it away, but actually by acknowledging it and saying, oh, this is here, but this is not so helpful. So I will withdraw attention from this and remain as the self. I will remain as that which is aware. Then this great heart of compassion, this great heart of love which you are, can flow freely. Not because you are loving, but because you are out of the way. This love and compassion which you are is always here. It is the root and the foundation of who you are. So it is not that you need to substitute some sort of doing in the world or some sort of doing in yourself which is artificial. You simply need to get out of the way. Even if you think you cannot feel it yet, when I get out of the way, I just feel empty, I don't feel anything, I don't feel this great river of love flowing. This is just mind. The great river of love, of compassion, of sympathy, of understanding which you are, is here eternally. So just keep letting go of this I, me, mine scenario in your mind, so that the natural love and compassion, which is always here, manifesting as all of this, can come. Allow that which has brought you here to this moment to take care of all that is here now. This is not your job. Consciousness, awareness, God, the Supreme, whatever you choose to name it, has something, some way, and is caring for everything that is here and everything that needs to be taken care of. Your task continuously is to get out of its way. Some of you were here on Friday, and I asked the question, can you let yourself be loved? Can you allow the love and compassion which is already here to come to you? Because you see, you are the gateway in this moment, here now, for the great love and compassion that is always here to flow. So I asked this question on Friday to get you to begin to consider, to notice the times when you are shut down, turned off, closed off by sadness or grief or other things, other emotions. And know that when you are favoring those kinds of thoughts, fear, anger, sadness, grief, and by favoring them I mean sticking with them. We all have them, they all come as a consequence, naturally, of what we experience as humans. But when we stick with them for long periods of time, hours a day, then we are favoring them. And I asked you to look and see, notice, if you will, at that time, that by doing this, you are blocking the natural flow of love for you, for all beings, for the circumstances in which you find yourself, and for the world. So in some ways, this is an extension of that conversation, just to say to you, put everything at the feet of that which has brought you here. By here, I mean both Arunachala and life itself. Begin to trust that that which has brought you here is looking after you, body, mind, and spirit, and looking after the world, body, mind, and spirit. So if you feel absolutely compelled to do something, use the great power of your love and your thought to send compassion both to yourself and to all beings who find themselves also suffering in the same way that you are. To acknowledge that there is suffering in the world is not the problem. To see this suffering in the world as the root of compassion, and then to water, cultivate, and support that compassion's growth within yourself is of great benefit both to you and to the world. So when you find yourself overwhelmed by sadness and grief for your own story or for some story in the world, ask yourself, who is aware of this? What is aware of this? Is this awareness limited to this body and mind? Or is this the mind of the Absolute, of the Divine? Showing itself what needs to be loved. Some of you know there was a book many, many years ago that a lot of people in our community are aware of. It was called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment. Are any of you aware of this? It's been out of print for many years. Yeah. And in this book, this man described a practice. His name was Thaddeus Golas, I think, wasn't it? Yes. And he developed this practice. He lived in San Francisco at that time, which of course was this great, this was around the mid-60s or the late 60s, 1960s. And of course this was this great hotbed of cultural revolution and spiritual awakening that was happening in this place at that time. And so because he was a seeker of sorts, he went there. And he took a small room, and it had a window that was looking to the street. And somehow spontaneously, through one of his explorations with various substances, he came to this practice where he simply would sit and watch out the window throughout the entire day. And he would watch all of the movement of life. And then he would ask himself, what is it that I can't love? And what he discovered was that prior to this practice or this intuition, there were many things that he was rejecting in the world and in life. But by sitting in this window in San Francisco, which was quite a crazy place at that time, he could see virtually everything that was going on in the world in that small window. And he had the opportunity to ask himself, what is it about this that I cannot love? And then he wrote this very small, very profound book called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment. And he said, simply ask yourself this question in every circumstance. What is it that I cannot love? This is not to make a long list of the things you cannot love. It's to notice when your heart shuts down. And then to ask yourself, and can I love this also? And of course you will find out that the answer is yes. This may take some time for you, especially if you're very opinionated and you have lots of ideas about how things should be, ought to be, could be. This is all in opposition to our practice, which is the practice of loving what is. In many ways, this is the root of the inquiry. Can I love what is here now? The answer is always yes, when the source of that love is the heart itself, being, consciousness, and bliss. But the answer, when it comes through the mind, is often everything I can love but this. The limitation that we experience when that goes on in the mind does not limit the world in any way. It only limits the expression of love flowing through you as being, consciousness, and bliss. So in many ways, our practice of as sadhaks and doing sadhana and talking about inquiry here, coming to satsang and so on, is also in many ways can be said as a lazy man's pointer to enlightenment. Because in many ways we're not being asked to do anything but let go, to keep putting down all the places that rise in the mind where we are limited, we feel limited, we notice that there is opinion, we notice that there is judgment going on for ourselves, for another, for the world. And so here I don't usually recommend a great deal of effort, so I fit right into the lazy man's guide to enlightenment, because I don't require myself or you to put forth a great deal of effort. But I would encourage you to put forth a little bit of effort toward recognizing I am that which is aware, here, now. And what is being brought, this understanding that is being brought by this simple practice, this lazy person's way, is to constantly bring the love and compassion which is naturally here to yourself, your friends, your family, the world, by simply getting out of the way of what it is already here. This is also Sri Bhagavan Ramana's teaching when he asks the question, when he recommends to us to ask, who am I? The supposition for the question, who am I, is that you are already in some way, whether it is very subtle or it is very gross, like this deep sadness, you are already experiencing in some way, you are in direct contact with the experience, I am here. And he explains to us that it is this I, which is the gateway to the Supreme, to being, consciousness, and bliss. And so he recommends that we keep bringing attention back in this way. If you have a very difficult samskara, like Robert was talking about this morning, where when he sees these news articles and people talk to him about it, there's a very deep sadness and a very deep feeling that comes with this. If you have this very difficult samskara, there can be a tendency to feel as though it's not enough to ask the question, who am I? What is aware? Am I aware? And to look at what is behind the sadness, the grief. Persist. This is ultimately going to unravel all of the sadness and all of the grief, and make the love, compassion, and heart which you are available to you and to the world. So persist. As you remember, Bhagavan used to say, even if you ask this question 1,000 times a day, it's okay. And some of you know the story of Adiyannamalai, Sri Adiyannamalai coming to Bhagavan and saying, I followed that advice and I counted yesterday, I had to ask the question 700 times yesterday. And Bhagavan's reply was very good. Because it's better to be asking the question, even almost like a mantra, who am I, who am I, who am I? It's almost even better to do this than to allow the mind to proliferate in this sadness and grief, this samskara, which is there And of course he said, don't use who am I like a mantra, so let me be clear about that. Who am I is not a mantra. It is just the pointing back. It is the withdrawal of the food of attention from the surrounding environment, whether that be in the mind or in the world, and turning it back toward the self. And to do this over and over until we can come to the place where we are always the self. And we know it. Because of course we are always the self. The difficulty for most of us is that the mind does not yet quite know that, or does not quite yet accept that. So this is the point of the question, who am I, what is aware here, is to keep turning the mind toward this infinite knowledge and this primal knowing until it becomes reality itself for us as the being. And this me and mine can be put down, and we can radiate love, compassion, sympathy continuously as the self. And of course, the more people that are accepting that this is the reality, truth is the reality, the self is the reality, the more of us that possess this awareness, even if it's only fleeting within us now, but we continue to look for it, we continue to practice it, we continue to work on acceptance. The more of us that are doing this, the more healing can happen in the world. The more the things that tangle other people so that they argue, fight, destroy, and lack in love, the more this energy can be dissolved in the love of the ones who know themselves to be being, consciousness, and bliss, beyond the mind, body, and world, beyond past, present, and future. Here now, eternally, unborn, undying. Know that you are that. You are a great blessing to this world, just having made it here, to begin to settle into your nature. When times are difficult, remember that. Whatever you feel you have achieved, or whatever you feel is yet to be achieved, is not relevant. You are that which is aware. Just keep letting go of the story of me. Love, serve, exist as being, consciousness, bliss. This is the greatest gift you can give yourself and the world. All right. It's already beginning to get warm, isn't it? Would you like the fans up a little higher? We can turn them up a bit more. Some people like that, some people don't. Is there a consensus? We are a small enough group, we can just tell each other what we want here. Is everything okay then?
This one, nobody, I would like. Yes.
Up or down?
Yes.
Somewhere there's a microphone? Oh, okay. So,
It's not really a question, it is just a feedback and a thank you that I have the feeling that you have thrown out a cork from the heart, and I could really feel more just the flow of this love. So it's I just want to say thank you that some kind of block has just went away.
Very
That's it.
good. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Huh?
I want to keep this position.
She said, I hope to keep this. So, what I can say about that for you is then don't wonder what went. Right? This is something happens all the time, right? Oh, this is gone, this is gone. The next time I see the person, they are saying, I don't know what went. I have to find out what that was. I don't know. And right, you're just looking for you're looking around for the bait and hoping it will hook you again. You know? So it's like, no, don't do that. Just let it go. If the mind wants you to know something about what has happened or what has been let go of, it will let you know, but you'll have a lot less interest in it, so don't be interested in it as a way of just let go.
I have a question. Very often when I want to make some decision in my life, I'm finding me in fear. And this fear, I feel it very badly in my body.
Yeah.
Sometimes paralyze me. And then I'm stepping back. I don't know why.
What was the question?
About the fear when I make some decisions in my life. Some important decisions.
So I can give you two hints then. One is to understand that to do nothing is also a decision. So it often looks as though you have to choose either this or this, A or B. But C is to keep quiet and do nothing. The reason this is an important and necessary choice to have is because all that we need to decide in some way can say has already been decided. Whichever you choose, A or B, it was already in your destiny to choose that. What you are saying is, I cannot make that choice. So then, option C, do nothing. Doing nothing means asking the question, oh, what is aware of this choice, this imaginary, this fictional choice that I seem to have? You can struggle and suffer for a long period of time over A or B. But by giving the mind C, which the way Bhagavan stated it was keep quiet, but the way I'm stating it, you can also use, I am choosing to do nothing at this moment. This is also a very empowering thought. Why? Because the mind wants you to choose, so it's putting a lot of pressure. You must choose, you must choose. But really you needn't choose. The choice somehow has already happened. Everything that we are to experience throughout our life is somehow already known by the self. Not by us, but by the self. So the self will naturally guide us toward that choice, which we must ask, and this solution that must come in this moment, in order that we are led down the path which we had to walk anyway. Most of the time, when there is this kind of difficulty, should I choose A or B, and all this fear is coming, there's not a recognition that whatever choices you made in the past, though some of them may look like they were not the right choice at the time, and this is the fear that's rising now, what if I don't make the right choice? This can be countered with the understanding that all the choices you made up to this moment have led you here, even the ones that looked horrible at the time. So now you can begin to cultivate some trust, both for your own process and for the recognition that everything which has happened in the past has led you here. Therefore, everything that is chosen now will lead you forward in whatever way needs to happen. In some way, this is not even my choice. But by giving the mind this third option, consciously choosing to not decide at this moment, somehow relaxes the mind, relaxes the stress around the question, relaxes the fear just a little bit. So we can say to the mind, please go sit in the corner while I wait. This helps to diminish the fear and so on. And then what we can begin to notice is that naturally what starts to happen, right, is that even in the silence, even in the quiet, even in the waiting period, that which is bound to happen anyway for us, to lead us on the path of whatever direction we need to go, this begins to show itself to us. Either because we make some small attempt to go toward A, and it just gets blocked. And then we make some small attempt to go toward B, and there seems to be some small opening. In the beginning, can be the way it appears to the mind. Yes? But over time, we come to understand that we're always shown the way if we keep quiet. The way to deal with the fear, in particular, is to be aware, not of A, B, or C, but of the recognition that fear is here. This is fear. Now keep quiet. See, this isn't suppressing anything. This is saying fear is here. Now keep quiet. For some, the fear immediately dissipates. For others, the fear that's been acknowledged causes the whole body to shake and vibrate in fear. Yes? Yes. But you are sadhak. You are doing sadhana in your life. Stand in that fear. Stand in this shimmering and shaking that is going on in the mind and body and heart. Just stand in it. You will discover you are stronger than you believe you are. And by keeping quiet in the middle of this fear, standing still there for a minute, a day, an hour, however long it wants to cause this shimmer, you come to see something about reserves that you possess as being, consciousness, and bliss, which you didn't know that you had. Okay? You know, you do this every day. Every one of you had to get on an airplane to come here. Is there anyone in this room who never on a flight has had the feeling, uh-oh, something's not right, right? This fear comes. Uh-oh, plane is shimmering, shaking. Uh-oh, but you cannot go anywhere, right? You cannot do anything. So what do? Nothing. Okay, I'm shaking. and then it stops. Then you're here, and you don't remember that at all. It was just happened, right? It was just happening. It does not prevent you from getting on the plane to go home. It doesn't prevent you from getting on the plane to come back next year. Yeah? You say, oh. Even you tell a big story about it. You know? This has to be the same way with every fear. You understand completely, totally, there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. I have to just be here in this. But not be here in this a victim of the fear. Be here in this with the recognition, I am that which is aware of this, and not this object, fear, and that which is aware of it. And then begin to look at that awareness itself, if you will, turn toward it. You cannot see it, but you make the effort to turn toward it. Being, consciousness, bliss, you turn toward it, and then you begin to see, there's something here which is unaffected. Even the body is shaking. Even the plane is shaking. There is something here which is not affected by this. This is the purpose of the third choice, to keep bringing us back into the body first, into the mind and heart second, and then into what is before that. So this is a progressive kind of way of looking at our experience, which takes attention off of the object and puts it on the awareness itself. Yes, this is clear? Okay.
Rishi, I've got a few questions that arise
Okay.
from booklet, Who Am I? Ramana's booklet, Who Am I? In question 9, he talks about the thought I arising from the heart. Does he mean the physical heart or the spiritual heart to the right of the sternum?
He's referring there to the spiritual heart to the right.
And how can one feel that? And can one get a sense of that?
Yes. There's another place, not in that book, but I think in Talks, where he talks about cultivating, before you go to sleep at night, the intention, if you will, using the mind in this way. Again, this is a practice, so yeah, it has a limit, but cultivating the intention that attention will stop and wait at the spiritual heart in the morning as awareness or consciousness begins to flood the body. He describes how this happens instantaneously, so it appears simultaneous to the mind, that so fast it happens that what we perceive usually first is that we are here in the head. So the first thing we perceive is the thought I, or some thought around the I. I slept well, I didn't sleep well. Oh, I overslept, I have to get up. Oh, I have a long list today. These thoughts come right away before we rise up off the bed. However, he points to this skill which can be cultivated, and that is to make the intention before we go to bed at night, that in the morning I will wait at the doorway of the heart, and I will just watch. I will bring the witness, this witness quality to bear here in this place, and I will pause there. There will be a pausing there, not I. There will be a pausing there. And from that place, then, he further explains that what you can see is that the heart opens in some way just before the I thought comes. Now at the moment you're observing this, there is still the subtle I is already there, because it is the witness watching. But it can actually watch the energy of consciousness itself, flood the whole body from top to bottom, foot to head, and you can watch the energy of consciousness itself, the light of awareness, open in whatever you call the mind, what we're calling the mind, right? That you can watch this process happen. This is true. So you can take up this practice. But the strongest skill necessary is this observational quality, the witnessing quality, not doing it with the mind. This is not a mind activity.
I've got a bit of confusion around the reference I and I. Until now I thought I was one place and I another. The way it's written, it's I dash I. I really thought that was another place, like the self. I was the localization and I the self, the absolute. But that's not what's meant.
So I'm not going to speak for him, but what I can say about that from my own experience is that both are reference points. What we can perceive, if you will, witness as body-mind is I. We know this because every single person who exists has this feeling, I exist. Sitting there now, you know it.
Yeah.
This is the I he's referring to.
That's clear.
I exist.
Yeah.
This is I.
Mm-hmm.
When he later referred to this almost a pulsation, I, he was referring to a phenomenon, if you will, that many people experience in this pure witnessing position, such as when they're looking first thing in the morning, when there is no thought, there's just the observation in the region of the spiritual heart. Then there can be this sense of I, which will rise, similar to the natural heartbeat. But the heartbeat goes dong, 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 you know. This I is coming from a much deeper place than the physical heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
But remember that where he's always pointing us is to that which is before. So even if you spend a decade looking for the I or looking for the I, when you get there, if you will, whatever that experience is for you, there will still need to be the question, and who or what is this I? So my recommendation is don't spend a lot of time parsing these kinds of things. Just keep asking the question, who or what is I? Or what is before I? Or what is aware of I? You see? The mind likes us to stop somewhere in some concept. But Bhagavan and all the sages are really clear. In the final analysis, there is no such thing as I. You don't exist. This is the thought which uproots all thoughts and creates great panic for the mind. I don't exist. Then what is this? If I don't exist, what is this? This becomes the primary question.
Thank you. That's been very helpful. The next one is number 13 on, there's a reference to meditation on the self. What might that
Can
entail?
you give me a little more context?
The question here is the residual impressions, thoughts of objects appear unending like the waves of an ocean. When will all of them get destroyed? And the answer is, as the meditation on the self rises higher and higher, the thoughts will get destroyed. So what's the process of meditation?
The meditation on the self is the inquiry.
Okay.
The self being what is here prior to I, the gateway being I itself. So this is the who am I question, what am I question, what is where here. That we keep this up until we come to understand that there is only the self, nothing but the self. All of this is the self. This is the meditation on the self.
And the last point is in number 23, when there is reference to the 5 sheaths. The self is within the 5 sheaths. What are they?
World, mind, body. I don't know. Do you remember? I don't remember this. Hmm? The causal sheet. So, yeah. It's. I've forgotten all this. I don't know. I wish I could give it to you, but yeah.
5 sheaths.
Senses.
Gross body,
Gross body, prana.
I think manas, and mind. After the buddhi,
Yeah.
and last is this.
So it's like this.
Could you say it again?
So would you say it again? Where's the microphone?
In English.
Can you say it again?
No, the five sheets are the 5 koshas in Advaita Vedanta they call it. The outermost one is the gross body. This.
Gross body.
Then the next one is the prana, which is made out of prana.
Prana, the breath.
Yes. Life force. Second is life. Third one is the manas.
Mind.
Manas, yes. The fourth one is the intellect.
Intellect.
And fifth is
I'll get this from the talk, so.
Yeah.
and fifth is the innermost. This is made out of bliss.
The 5th is the bliss sheath.
Yes.
The recognition of self.
I'll listen to this again on
Okay. Thank
the
you.
video.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's been very helpful. Yeah, thank you very much.
I should brush up on them. It's not something I talk about very often anymore. Yeah.
Watching your satsangs on video,
If you hold it this way,
like this.
yes.
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
This is a difficult issue for me to bring up, but this is what I've been experiencing for many years. I feel that when there is too much suffering to the body, and it's chronic, you're already doing everything you can not to suffer. You have a very good lifestyle, very disciplined, good diet,
Yes.
It brings, especially when I come here to India, because I look like I'm okay, but it brings a lot of anxiety, especially in the morning. And I find it's absurd because this pain and this
which I'm always watching and coming back to the I, is actually a hindrance to the search. That I feel some suffering is good because instead of being happily enjoying life, you are pulled to search. But when it gets too intense, it just brings anxiety. And then there's a feeling that how long will I put up with it? Which I'm trying to, because I have a son who was born with health issues. He's 19 now, but we're very connected. So he keeps me alive. But I don't see myself going on like this for so many years. And I'm young and healthy in other ways, So sometimes I feel the bliss, and I feel I am blessed. But most of the time I feel it's just absurd. Because I have to tell my son about what I feel. He's been like that since he's small even, So it's really extreme, and it's not like... And also you don't feel understood. Because when I talk about, people say, well, I've been into extreme situations, so I know what it is. But it's not like an extreme situation that lasts for a day. It's an extreme situation that just goes on and on. So, and I don't know if you can help me, because I feel one has to experience in order to understand. I've been coming here 22 years. Published a book dedicated to Arunachala, it's portrait of 52 teachers. I think it's very hard. And I wasn't going to take the microphone because I would rather just show joy. A lot of people say my book is inspiring and that my son is beautiful. So now I find sometimes it's time for me to leave the body. And then I'm afraid that if I don't keep on putting up with the pain and the suffering, then I'll be reborn. I won't go through my karma. So this is what's happening all the time.
Yes.
I've been putting up with suffering for so many years.
Yes.
And it's never long enough. Well, sometimes there's a lot of guilt that comes. I feel I must have done something wrong, even though I know it's not true. It's just the lila. We don't know why. The best thing is not to understand why, of course,
The mind wants to understand why.
Yes. And also what pisses me off is that when the pain gets too intense, instead of remaining in the eye, which in the end doesn't work, I practice a lot remaining in before the thought. I still see the thoughts all the time. So it's easy for me to watch a movie or read a book, so then I feel I'm escaping, but it's a release.
So it's time for you to notice that you are doing more than watching the thoughts. You are actually buying them. You're buying the whole movie. Can you feel within yourself how much you believe that the story of your pain and suffering is true?
Well, it's just the pain that makes it real.
Right, but you still have to acknowledge how much you invest in the belief that this is very, very real.
Yeah.
Right? So you're not just observing, and this is where the limitation of what you're doing is for you. Is that you are using this witness ability to watch it like it's a movie, but you're not actually pulling back from it. It's like you're stepping into the screen of the show and picking up the character of it. the character which this body-mind is playing on the screen. This isn't sufficient. This is very difficult to say to someone who is suffering in the way that you are.
Well, it's just, I feel like when the suffering is alleviated, I just enjoy, and I don't want to go to the past, I don't want to go into the future, I just want to be there and just believe it's going to
Yes.
just be there before the story, just be there. But then when the discomfort or the pain to the body becomes too intense, I get, like you say, you know, I just
Yeah.
get identified with the story.
So this story is here for you right now, as you're describing it. I can feel it, right? This is the strength of this story. Can you look right now and see what is before that, what is beyond that? Can you turn away from the story, even though you're describing it to me and I understand very clearly what you're describing? I was chronically ill for many years. If you've watched some of the videos, you might know that. Can you completely turn away from that? Are you willing to completely turn away from that? When I say completely, I mean, are you willing to look away from this pain, this suffering, in a way that nothing can draw your attention back to it? In order to do this, you have to be willing to say to the pain, I just don't care anymore. Kill me now, but this awareness which I am is going nowhere. So kill me now if you need to. Say this to the body. This is not me saying to you, kill yourself, right? In a way I'm saying, there's only one avenue left for you, and that's a deeper level of acceptance that the body is going to do what it does. I am aware. And I no longer care whether what I'm aware of is pain or pleasure. Because you actually said that when you feel good, you want to stay there.
Relieved, yeah.
Yeah. So this is just as strong, if not stronger, a tendency than the tendency to want to get rid of this pain, which is also very strong. So there's no way to go with that, because both are going to trap you in some side of the duality, which when the energy builds up strongly enough is going to fling you back to the other side of the duality. So there's only one thing left to do. Turn away from them both. Doing that now, if you're following me, what has happened? If you are not acknowledging the pleasure and you're not acknowledging the pain right here, right now, what is here?
Breathing and the thought comes that
The thought comes, what's watching that thought, however? What is here now? Don't be interested in the thought. I don't need an explanation from you. I need you just to watch. If you don't pick up the positive, you don't pick up the negative, you don't pick up the pleasure, you don't pick up the pain. Be here completely in this moment, in this conversation. What is here now? Are you unaware?
No.
Are you unconscious? No. Are you attached to the pain which was here previously? Are you attached to the pleasure which was here previously? Or are you just here?
I'm just here.
You are just here. What is that? Look. Can you name it or describe it? Or are you just here? Is there just a recognition of here-ness?
Yes.
So when this here-ness is here, and you've lost interest in the story or what was here before, of pleasure or pain, you feel some relief?
In the moment, yes.
At the moment, yes. The moment is all we have.
No.
Yeah, but this is the direct experience of it. This moment is all you have.
But I keep coming back to it.
Yes, but this is the way. You said, can you help me? This is the way. Right? This is the way. But in order to make this your own, first you have to have the experience. So I ask you, please let go of the pain. Please let go of the pleasure. Be here with me now. Just be here. Relax. Breathing. You are here. You know you are here. And in this here-ness, you said, you can feel some letting go. But the mind right away wants to pick it up again. Wants to pick up the story. You've been in this dialogue for such a long time. But this is not you. This is the momentum of conditioning that wants to immediately say, yeah, but this is only here now. This is only true in this moment. But in the next moment I will be back in pain. The next moment I will have some pleasure and be grasping at it. This is the momentum of the samskara itself. You are not that. This is what I'm trying to get you to see, is to end that conversation with the samskara. If you are able to end that conversation, and I say, are you here? You say yes. True?
But what you're making me practice right now,
Yes.
it's being done. I mean, I have to just remain and not just dare go back into the past, dare into the future, and just
Yes.
enjoying, not enjoying the pleasure, just enjoying the peace.
The here-ness, yes.
Yes.
And relaxing into that here-ness, that now-ness.
Yeah, with the teaching it's difficult because you can't, you're in that space, you can't go back into the future. Because if you are, then you're already not there anymore, not here. But so far my experience is that whenever the pain or uncomfort gets too much, I'm just put back into the story.
And who is saying this now?
The mind, the remembrance, the experience.
Yes, but you have to ask this question. When you have a moment of here-now-ness,
Yeah.
you have to ask this question. As soon as the mind starts to go articulate that story again, or articulate those beliefs again about what has been true in the past, you have to be willing to cut them then very quickly. I am not this. I am not this. I am here now. I am that which is aware. And this is the part where Bhagavan would say to someone, so if you need to do this 1,000 times a day, do it. Because for you, the consequence will be 1,000 moments a day of relief. Not necessarily from pain or suffering or from pleasure or grasping, but just relief from this bouncing back and forth. And you can find some relaxation and some presence here now, and that this is the seed which will grow into a mighty tree. Understand that what you are, the story that you have based on the experience of the past, this was once a tiny seed. Whether it was in the early part of this life or it was a seed that was planted in another life, we don't know. But this was once a tiny seed. Now this is a great tree of suffering that is here. So now you must begin to counter that. You plant this seed of awareness here now. I am aware.
But I've been countering it for so many years.
Yeah, but you need to do it very simply and very directly. I am aware and I'm not interested in what I am aware of. This becomes a very... Every time that happens, this is a chop to that tree of conditioning. And eventually that tree of conditioning will topple over.
It's just that you make it sound that, from a grain it became a big tree, so it feels like there's so much work to be done in order to...
No, there's only one thing to be done.
Yeah.
I am aware. And I don't care what I am aware of. I don't care whether it's pleasurable or painful. I don't care whether the thought is a pleasurable thought or a painful thought. I don't care whether what I'm aware of is a physical pain in the body or whether it's a physical pleasure in the body. In some way, it's not to say I don't care as a way of suppressing it. It's simply to say I am not interested. I have been interested in that my whole life, and look where it's gotten me. I'm not interested anymore. Now I'm just aware. I'm simply here. This is a small effort and a small thing to remember, but it also grows into a great oak tree over time. If you can completely put this down now, and don't want to go back to that story, then it can be completely gone now. But that's not the experience of most people. Most people will tell you, I had to do this, like Tiruvannamalai Swami. I had to do this inquiry 700 times yesterday. Bhagavan says, yeah, very good. This is the answer here. Do this. Be here. Be now. In the same way, lock in this great prodigious memory that you have. Lock in this moment. Now, return to this, here now-ness, even when pain is present. You are here now. What came before is not important. What comes tomorrow is not important. You are here. Feel this. Take this deeply into the center of being. You are here. Until this you that feels like she is here begins to dissolve and there is only here-ness. This here-ness is beyond thinking. Can still be aware that a thought is present, but it is not the thought. It is what is aware of the thought. This can be your experience in the same way that you can say, yes, I am here. In this moment, and in this moment, and in this moment. Know this to be the path to freedom for you. So that you want to do this with more passion and more desire than anything else. You have great passion and great desire to end your suffering. This is the way. If you can bear this great pain, you can bear this here now-ness. And you'll be much happier for bearing the here now-ness. Thank you for your courage. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhinam Mrityor Mukshiyamamritawa Swaha Uva Vu Om Sat Jung Hum Om. Namaste. Namaste.